Good evening, everyone. I'm Miyah, and I would like to welcome you back to another podcast edition of Hello World with Miyah. And today, I am going to talk about people who have a real learning disability. So stay tuned. Hello World, I'm Miyah, and I would like to welcome you back to another podcast edition of Hello World with Miyah. I have been up and running since 2013. I started out on YouTube and worked my way into WordPress, and I recently just started with the podcast. And my main objective is to raise autism awareness and autism acceptance together, because I believe that you cannot have one without the other. My main slogan is taking middle ground, and I will do anything from giving my 2 cents on what's going on with autism in media to providing practical steps and strategies that you can use at home. And then I also do interviews with people, so please be sure to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So here's what I have to say about that. Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. I hope you're having a really great weekend amid all the chaos that's going on and all these rules and regulations that some of you think are silly. But as you know, people are trying to flatten the curve and make sure that we don't end up getting sick and having a huge number of death tolls and a huge number of severe cases of COVID-19. So here we are, and thus I'm creating another podcast for you to enjoy. Now, as I said earlier in the intros, I'm going to talk about people who I think have the real learning disability and why. So, the people who I think have a real learning disability are these family members when it comes to individuals on the spectrum. And why do I feel that way, you ask? So, first of all, we have moms and dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles that are pushing for their autistic child or adolescent and a young adult or middle-aged adult, whoever it is, to become employed. And yet I'm finding that these same parents and these siblings and family members do not even bother to lift a finger to help them. Rather, I see them dumping their kids onto programs like vocational rehabilitation, where they're stuck on a waiting list, or they finally get in and they have no luck and they get promised things that never happen. So that's a big problem. And then another thing I'm noticing is while they're dumping their adult children on these services and all these other things, well, they have lots of networks and lots of friends in their community who could be helping them get their kid into a job where they could be picking up job skills and doing all kinds of things. And sure, they may struggle on those jobs, but I think people on the spectrum need to learn how to network. And when people like these parents and these family members insist that their disabled child needs to be on a waiting list with vocational rehabilitation while their child is miserable, that's a big problem. That is a learning disability. And yet, again, they seem to have no problem helping their allistic adult children break into positions related to their fields, and that's not fair. And again, that's cluelessness. And cluelessness, and to me, is a real learning disability. And I feel so sorry for these parents and these guardians and these family members that do this to their kids, because it's not right. And I don't think they realize that they're hurting their kid when they do that. Now, another thing that just disgusts me, but it's all part of the cluelessness as well as an excuse or part of this learning disability, is I often ask them why they didn't find anybody else among their friends and family members. And I often get this: well, I don't have a choice, or I didn't have a choice. I have friends, but I don't think they would know how to help that person. Well, you know what? That is Boulder Dash, okay? You have the choice to either help your child and step up to bat and be responsible, or you can get them on a waiting list with vocational rehabilitation or get them into another work program where people see nothing in them but the disabilities and do not even bother to teach them how to network. They just do everything for the individual. That is disgusting. That is a learning disability right there. And I know that some of you may get mad at me for saying this. And I know that some of you may tell me I'm going on a rant. But the truth is, when you do things like you're doing with the child or looking at their disabilities, you're not helping them. You are hurting them. And you're getting them on vocational rehabilitation and some of these other work programs just to pass the buck. That's just plain lazy because you don't know how to deal with the individuals. And really, you as mom and dad and these brothers and sisters, you could have been teaching them social skills. You could have been teaching them how to program computers or answer the phone, receptionist. And you could have been teaching them all kinds of skills. And good grief, we have platforms now like Linda that are on LinkedIn. And instead, you just dump them on somebody else. And that's gross. And I cannot emphasize enough. Now, again, I know that some of you may be mad at me for reporting this because perhaps my voice, what I'm saying, is making you feel like you're a bad family member. Well, no, not exactly. You're not a bad family member. You're just making bad choices. And again, you're doing more harm than good when you do things like that. Because while your autistic kids are living out the jobs of their dreams, these individuals are being kept down and they're not being allowed to move forward. And when you do that, that's poor. We have people on the spectrum that are very talented and they can be taught just like everybody else. And I can't emphasize enough that your child or your sibling is just as equal as you are. And when you sit there and tell the child or the adult that they have to go through vocational rehabilitation because they're disabled, while you sit there and compare them to your autistic kids that are able to go into nursing school and become a nurse, that is balderdash. That is sick. That is disgusting. And I have seen so many cases of cluelessness syndrome that it is not even funny. And I just feel so sorry for these parents, and I feel so sorry for these guardians and these family members that cannot even begin to recognize that. And sad to say, these parents have built up such a wall for themselves, and they've been brainwashed by our systems that their kids are broken or their siblings are broken, that it's actually very sad. Now, who are the people that injected the Clueless virus? You might ask. Well, special education teachers, doctors, people who think they know everything, who really don't have a clue as to where their students or their clients or their patients could go. I don't know how many times history has to prove them wrong until it gets through to them. And we know that there are people on the spectrum that are living complete and independent lives, and they take care of themselves, and they've been able to hold down fine careers. There are plenty of people on the spectrum that are professors and engineers and inventors today. And it's sad that that's only a small part of the autistic population. And I think it's sad that there's another percentage today because these parents and these guardians and these family members did not have the courtesy or they didn't have the courtesy or the time to be there for their autistic child. Instead, they were too focused on the disabilities, and that's gross. And I can't emphasize enough. So, yes, there are people on the spectrum that struggle to read cues or struggle with overwhelming environments, and people on the spectrum that have clinical depression that can keep a person in bed for days. But perhaps the reason there is depression is because there's so much negativity in the world. And when you have a disability, people around you are negative all the time. People often shut you down when you talk about wanting to get a degree or wanting to drive a car. And so after a while, those people are probably getting tired of hearing it. Now, I don't know what else to say, but this is something that I've been angry about for a long time. But what is wrong with these parents, and what is wrong with these siblings? I don't know. Anyway, that's it for this edition. If you like what I'm doing, please be sure to subscribe to my channel, and please be sure to check me out on Facebook. You can also follow me on Instagram, and then you can also find me on Twitter. Check out my WordPress. These will be archived on WordPress. Go to helloworld240.wordpress.com. That's helloworld240.wordpress.com. And also be sure to stay tuned for some podcast interviews. I'm talking to one woman, and we're already starting to promote it. And I'm also talking to people who will be on the panel with me, and I'm going to interview them because I don't think it's fair that we have to wait for 6 months until the panel actually happens. So I thought it would be fun to introduce everybody and everybody share their own voice, and then promote that way and get more people to come. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Miyah, and I'm signing out now. Good night.